For 3 years, I loved my CEO in secret. Every time I asked what we were, she laughed and called us just bed buddies. I ignored the red flags because I believed one day she would choose me. Then I overheard her mocking our relationship in front of investors, and everything changed. I walked away, rebuilt my life, and found someone who valued me openly. But when my CEO ex saw a bracelet she once threw away on another woman's wrist, the regret she had buried finally exploded, and she realized too late what she had lost. For 3 years, I loved a woman who refused to admit I existed. Are we ever going to stop hiding? I asked her one night. She smiled without looking up from her laptop. Why ruin a good thing? A relationship isn't a bad thing. She laughed. You're cute when you get serious. That was always her answer. She was the CEO of the company. I was one of her senior managers. Behind closed doors, we shared dinners, vacations, and nights together. In public, I was just another employee. My best friend noticed it long before I did. She's using you, he told me one afternoon. No, she isn't. Then what are you to her? I hesitated. He sighed. Exactly. I hated that he had a point. The company gala arrived a week later. It was the biggest event of the year. Investors, executives, and media partners filled the ballroom. I spent most of the evening working. Then I saw her near a group of investors. One of them smiled and asked, "You must have men lining up to date you." She laughed. "I don't date employees." The group chuckled. Another investor said, "Never say never." She took a sip of champagne. "No chance. I worked too hard to build my reputation." I froze. The investor pointed toward the crowd. "What if the guy was successful?" She shrugged. "If he's beneath my level, he's beneath my level." More laughter followed. Then she said something that shattered me. "Besides, relationships are messy. Bed buddies are much easier." The investors laughed again. None of them knew she was talking about me. My chest tightened. For a moment I couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years reduced to a joke. I stepped away before anyone noticed me listening. My phone buzzed. It was my best friend. "How's the gala?" I stared at the message. Then I typed back. "You were right." Several seconds passed. "What happened?" "Nothing." "That's a lie." I looked across the room at her. For the first time she felt like a stranger. The bracelet in my pocket suddenly felt heavy. I had bought it weeks earlier. Inside was a simple engraving. The date we first met. The date that changed my life. Later that night I found her alone. "I have something for you." She glanced at the small box. "What is it?" "Open it." She did. "Oh, a bracelet." That was all she said. I forced a smile. "Look inside." She barely checked. "Nice." "That's it." "What do you want me to say?" I stared at her. She slipped the bracelet back into the box. "I need to get back to the guests." I finally asked the question I had been carrying for years. "What are we?" Her expression immediately changed. "Not this again." "I'm serious." "We're adults." "That's not an answer." She crossed her arms. "Don't make this complicated." I felt my heart breaking. Was any of it real? She looked away. Then she shrugged. That hurt more than any insult could have. I nodded slowly. "Okay. Don't be dramatic." I laughed bitterly. 3 years and that's all you have to say? She didn't answer. For the first time I turned around and walked away. She didn't stop me. She didn't call my name. As I left the ballroom, one thought kept repeating in my head. I had spent 3 years loving someone who never planned to choose me. I barely slept after the gala. By sunrise, my decision was made. I walked into the office carrying a resignation letter. My hands felt steady for the first time in years. When I entered her office, she glanced up from her desk. "You're here early." I placed the envelope in front of her. "What is this?" "My resignation." Her eyes narrowed. "Stop joking." "I'm not." She opened the envelope and scanned the page. The confidence on her face cracked for a second before returning. "You're quitting because of last night?" "I'm quitting because of the last 3 years." She leaned back. "This is emotional." "No. Staying was emotional." She tossed the letter onto the desk. "You'll regret this." I met her gaze. "No. I regret staying." The room fell silent. Finally she scoffed. "Fine. Go." "That's it. What do you want? A goodbye speech?" I laughed quietly. "No. I guess this fits." She crossed her arms. "You always come back." I stared at her for several seconds. Then I shook my head. "Not this time." I walked out before she could respond. My phone rang before I reached the parking lot. It was my best friend. Tell me you didn't punch anybody. I laughed. No. Then what happened? I quit. A long pause followed. You actually did it? Yeah. Damn. I'm proud of you. I looked up at the sky. Honestly, I'm terrified. Good. That means you're finally doing something for yourself. 3 days later, I left the city. The apartment felt empty when I locked the door for the last time. But it also felt lighter. My former mentor welcomed me into his consulting firm. The moment I arrived, he handed me a coffee. You look terrible. Good to see you too. He smiled. Heartbreak. Something like that. He nodded. I won't ask questions. Thank you. But I will give advice. I groaned. He laughed. Work hard. Sleep more. Stop chasing people who don't choose you. I froze. Was it that obvious? It usually is. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding myself. My best friend called almost every day. Did you eat? Yes. Real food. Mostly. You're impossible. You've told me that for years. And I'll keep telling you. Slowly, life became easier. I exercised. I worked. I slept through the night. The constant ache in my chest began fading. Meanwhile, messages from unknown numbers appeared on my phone. I ignored them. Emails arrived. I deleted them. One evening, my best friend asked, "Do you think she misses you?" I shrugged. It doesn't matter. You still love her? The question hurt. A part of me probably always will. And? I looked out the window. I'm finally learning to love myself more. Weeks passed. I never called her. I never texted her. I never checked her social media. For the first time since meeting her, she had no place in my daily routine. One afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I blocked it. A minute later, another appeared. Blocked. Then another. Blocked. I knew exactly who it was. For years, she had controlled when we talked, when we met, and when we disappeared from each other's lives. Not anymore. That evening, I received a message from a former coworker. She spent 10 minutes staring at her phone today. I frowned. What happened? The reply came quickly. She finally realized every number she used was blocked. I stared at the screen. Then I put the phone away. For the first time, the silence belonged to me. 3 months changed my life more than the previous 3 years ever had. I was working with my mentor, sleeping well, and finally feeling like myself again. Most surprising of all, I had met someone new. You still look nervous in formal clothes, she teased as we entered the charity event. I've always looked nervous. True. I laughed. She was a jewelry designer with a sharp mind and a habit of saying exactly what she thought. That honesty was refreshing. No work talk tonight, she warned. I'll try. You said that last time. And I failed. Horribly. We both laughed as we stepped into the crowded ballroom. For the first time in years, attending an event didn't feel like walking into a battlefield. We grabbed drinks and found a quiet corner. So, she asked, how's the new project? Going well. Just well? Very well. There he is. What? The proud smile. I rolled my eyes. You notice everything. I do. As she lifted her glass, a familiar flash of silver caught my attention. The bracelet. The same bracelet I had once given my ex. The date engraved inside was hidden from view, but I knew it was there. A memory flickered through my mind. 2 weeks after leaving the city, a package had arrived at my apartment. No note. No explanation. Just the bracelet. I had stared at it for nearly an hour. Then my mentor noticed it. You keeping that? I don't know. Does it remind you of pain or survival? The question stayed with me. A month later, I gave it away. Not because I forgot the past. Because I survived it. The designer noticed me looking at it. You okay? Yeah. You got quiet. I was just remembering something. She smiled. I love this bracelet, by the way. I'm glad. It feels lucky. Before I could answer, the atmosphere shifted. I felt it immediately. Someone was staring. I turned. My ex stood across the room. For a second, neither of us moved. Then her eyes dropped. Straight to the bracelet. The color drained from her face. What happened? The designer whispered. I already knew. My ex began walking toward us. Slowly. Carefully. As if she couldn't trust what she was seeing. Her assistant followed a few steps behind. Ma'am? The assistant asked softly. My ex ignored her. She stopped directly in front of us. The designer smiled politely. Hello. My ex barely acknowledged her. Her eyes never left the bracelet. Finally she spoke. Where did you get that? The designer glanced down. This? Yes. Her voice sounded strained. The designer smiled. He gave it to me. Silence. My ex stared at me. Then back at the bracelet. Then at me again. I could almost see the memories hitting her. The late-night dinners. The hidden weekends. The years she claimed meant nothing. Her voice cracked slightly. He gave it to you? Yes. The designer looked confused. Is something wrong? No. The answer came too quickly. My ex swallowed hard. For the first time since I had known her, she looked completely lost. The assistant stepped forward. Ma'am, the donors are waiting. Not now. The assistant blinked in surprise. My ex never spoke that way during events. The designer looked at me. Do you know her? I nodded. We used to work together. My ex laughed bitterly. Work together. The words sounded painful coming from her. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Her eyes filled with emotion. Not anger. Not arrogance. Regret. Raw and undeniable. The assistant touched her arm. Ma'am? This time she listened. She looked at me one final time. Then at the bracelet. A tear slipped down her cheek. Without another word she turned around. The assistant hurried after her. I watched her walk through the crowd. For years, I had imagined what it would feel like to see her regret losing me. I thought it would feel satisfying. Instead it felt sad. The designer slipped her hand into mine. You okay? I squeezed her hand gently. Yeah. Across the ballroom my ex reached the exit. Seconds later she disappeared through the doors, leaving the event in tears. A week after the charity event, I was having lunch with the jewelry designer when she caught me staring into space. There you go again. What? Thinking about her. I sighed. Was it that obvious? Painfully obvious. I looked down at my coffee. I'm trying not to. Then stopped trying. I frowned. That's not helpful. She smiled. You're treating the past like a room you keep revisiting. And? Lock the door. I laughed despite myself. You make everything sound simple. No. I just don't make it complicated. That honesty was one of the reasons I liked being around her. She never pretended. She never played games. She never made me guess where I stood. Meanwhile, life continued moving forward. Work was thriving. My mentor trusted me with larger projects. Every day felt a little brighter than the one before. Then a former coworker called me. You won't believe what's happening. What now? She's falling apart. I remained silent. The coworker lowered his voice. Ever since that event, she hasn't been the same. I didn't respond. She keeps making mistakes. Mistakes happen. Not like this. After ending the call, I tried not to think about it, but more updates followed. Meetings missed. Deadlines forgotten. Clients ignored. Then I learned about the rival executive. A man who had spent years waiting for an opportunity. The moment she became distracted, he struck. One major contract disappeared. Then another. Then another. Investors began asking questions. The company that once seemed untouchable was suddenly vulnerable. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I mostly felt tired. One evening, another former coworker called. Her assistant finally confronted her. What happened? The answer came immediately. She told her the truth. I leaned back in my chair. What truth? The coworker sighed. She said, you never appreciated him. The words hit harder than I expected. And? There was a brief pause. Your ex didn't argue. That surprised me. What did she say? The coworker's voice softened. She said, I thought he'd never leave. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Eventually, I thanked him and ended the call. The next morning, I met the designer before work. You look distracted, she said. Maybe. Thinking about your ex again? I nodded. She stirred her coffee. Do you miss her? The question lingered. I miss who I thought she was. That's different. Yeah. She smiled gently. You know what's funny? What? The woman who hurt you still controls your emotions. I looked at her. And how do I fix that? She stood. By building a future bigger than your past. The words stayed with me all day. Hours later, I finished work and gathered my things. I was finally beginning to understand what she meant. My future didn't belong to old memories. It belonged to new choices. I stepped outside my office building. Then I stopped. Someone was standing beside the entrance. My breath caught immediately. It was her. My ex. And for the first time since I left, she wasn't hiding behind confidence. She looked exhausted. As our eyes met across the sidewalk, I realized she hadn't come by accident. She had come for me. I stood frozen outside my office. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered. The confidence was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was exhaustion. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated. "Why?" "Please." That single word surprised me more than anything else. She never begged. Not for deals. Not for opportunities. Not for people. Yet here she was. After several seconds, I nodded. We walked to a quiet cafe nearby. Neither of us spoke until we sat down. Finally, she looked at me. "I've been trying to reach you for months." "I know. You blocked me." "Yes." Her eyes lowered. "I deserved that." I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. Then the words started pouring out. "I kept telling myself you would come back." I remained silent. "I thought you loved me too much to leave." That one hurt. Because it was true. For years I had. "I was selfish," she continued. "I know. I thought I had time." I looked away. "You had 3 years." Tears filled her eyes. "I know." The cafe grew quiet around us. Then she whispered the words I never thought I would hear. "I loved you." My chest tightened. She wiped at her eyes. "I loved you the entire time. Then why treat me like I meant nothing?" Her voice broke. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Needing someone." I stared at her. For years I had wanted honesty. Now it was finally here. Too late. "I built my whole life around control," she said. "The company. My reputation. Everything. And you were the one thing I couldn't control." I laughed bitterly. "So your solution was to hurt me?" Fresh tears appeared. "I know how terrible that sounds." Neither of us spoke for several moments. Then she finally said it. "I was wrong." Those words once would have meant everything. Months ago, I would have forgiven her instantly. Months ago, I would have run back to her. Now they felt different. Not meaningless. Just late. Painfully late. That evening, I met the jewelry designer for dinner. She immediately noticed something was wrong. "You talked to her." I nodded. "How did it go?" I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she smiled softly. "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." I looked at her. She reached across the table. "Choose what gives you peace." That was all she said. No pressure. No jealousy. No demands. Just peace. Later that night, I met her sister for the first time. The designer had invited me over for coffee. Her sister listened to our conversation and laughed. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "You already know the answer." I frowned. "What answer?" "The one you're afraid to say out loud." I couldn't argue. Because she was right. That night, sleep never came. I kept replaying every memory. The good moments. The painful ones. The years I spent chasing someone who refused to choose me. By sunrise, my decision was clear. I would forgive her. Carrying anger forever would only hurt me. But forgiveness wasn't the same thing as returning. Some bridges stay broken for a reason. I picked up my phone. My hands felt steady. For the first time, there was no confusion. No doubt. No fantasy about what could have been. Only certainty. I typed a message. "We need to meet one last time." Then I pressed send. And waited. After sending the message, I focused on work. For the first time in months, my future felt larger than my past. 3 days later, my mentor called me into his office. "Sit down." That immediately made me nervous. "Why do I feel like I'm about to be fired?" He laughed. "If I wanted to fire you, I'd send an email." "Fair." He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Then I stared. Then I looked again. "Is this real?" "It is." My heart started racing. The proposal involved leading a major international expansion project. It was the biggest opportunity of my career. "They want me?" "They specifically requested you." I leaned back in disbelief. Months ago, I had been wondering how to rebuild my life. Now life was offering me something bigger than I had imagined. "You earned it," my mentor said. For once, I believed him. Later that evening, a former coworker called. "Things are getting ugly." I already knew who he meant. What happened now? The board meeting. I listened quietly. A board director questioned her decisions in front of everyone. What kind of decisions? The contract. The missed opportunities. The investors. I closed my eyes. The coworker continued. "People noticed she hasn't been focused." That news wasn't surprising. What happened after that? Investors started pulling back. I remained silent. The confidence is gone. After the call ended, I sat alone for a while. Karma rarely arrived the way people expected. Most of the time it looked like consequences. The next morning another message arrived. This one shocked me. Apparently her father had visited the company. A few hours later, I received more details from someone who had overheard part of their conversation. "What happened to you?" her father had asked. No one knew how long she stayed silent. But eventually she answered. According to the employee, she started crying. Not polite tears. Not controlled tears. The kind that came from months of buried regret. Then she finally admitted the truth. "I lost someone important." Her father asked, "And that caused all this?" The answer was immediate. Yes. I stared at the message. For years she believed success could solve everything. Power, money, status, control. She had spent so much time protecting those things that she failed to protect the people who cared about her. That realization had arrived too late. That evening my phone buzzed. A new message. Her name appeared on the screen. For several seconds I simply stared at it. Then I opened it. The message was short. "I understand now." Nothing else. No excuses. No promises. No attempts to change my mind. Just acceptance. For the first time, I realized she finally understood something I had learned months ago. Some mistakes cannot be undone. Some opportunities never return. And some people only recognize love after they've already lost it forever. I looked at the message one final time. Then I put my phone away and prepared for our last meeting. Because deep down, I knew she had finally realized she could no longer fix the past. Chapter 7. The man she couldn't keep. I arrived 10 minutes early. The meeting place was a quiet park near the river. When I saw her sitting on a bench, I almost didn't recognize her. The woman who once seemed untouchable now looked tired and fragile. She stood when she saw me. "Thank you for coming." I nodded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled sadly. "I used to think silence was easy." "It isn't." "No." She looked down. "I know that now." I sat across from her. "What did you want to say?" She laughed softly. "Honestly? Everything." I waited. She took a deep breath. "I was selfish." I remained silent. "I took you for granted." "I know. I hurt you." "Yes." Tears filled her eyes. "I wish I could change it." The pain in her voice felt real. Months ago, hearing those words would have shattered me. Now they simply made me sad. She wiped her eyes. "I keep thinking about all the chances you gave me." I looked away. There were a lot. Too many. Neither of us argued. Because we both knew it was true. Finally, she asked the question she had been avoiding. "Is there any chance for us?" The words hung between us. I looked across the street. The jewelry designer stood near a coffee shop, giving us privacy. She wasn't watching. She wasn't worried. She simply trusted me. For the first time in my life, someone chose me openly. Without secrets. Without conditions. Without shame. I looked back at my ex. "No." I said it gently. But I said it clearly. Her face crumpled. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then another. "I understand," she whispered. And I believed her. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small box. She frowned. "What's that?" "Our past." I handed it to her. Slowly she opened it. Inside were photographs. Old vacations. Birthday dinners. Smiling moments from a life we once shared. Her hands trembled. "You kept these?" For a while. She stared at the pictures. Then at me. I smiled sadly. "Keep the memories." Fresh tears appeared. "What about you?" I stood. "I'm keeping the lesson." She closed her eyes. For the first time, I think she truly understood. Love isn't something you place on a shelf until it's convenient. Love isn't something you hide because you're afraid. And love isn't guaranteed to wait forever. When she opened her eyes again, there was no anger. Only regret. And acceptance. "I hope you're happy," she said. I nodded. "I think I'm finally getting there." She smiled through tears. "You deserve that." Those were the last words she ever said to me. I turned and walked away. This time, neither of us asked the other to stay. Across the street, the woman waiting for me smiled. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." I took her hand. It felt warm. Safe. Certain. As we started walking together, I glanced back one final time. My ex remained on the bench. Alone. Not because karma punished her. Because her choices did. Then I faced forward. Months earlier, I had lost the person I thought I couldn't live without. In the process, I found something far more valuable. My self-respect. And as I walked toward my future with someone who truly valued me, I finally understood my worth. The end.